It was my second night at the cabin, and I lay awake, terrified. Something strange had happened the night before. I heard footsteps on the wraparound porch, followed by the sound of a door opening, sleigh bells, and a pot falling. Then an entity walked through the house and seemed to fold into Nick's bed before disappearing into the floor. I had no idea what was happening. I was frozen with fear, unable to move, only able to watch as the terror unfolded before me. The next morning, I couldn't keep my anxiety to myself any longer. I went to Nick's mum, explaining everything in detail. She listened sympathetically, but surprisingly told me that she had heard her husband the night before as well. She believed it was him, and I was left confused. Her comfort didn't ease my fears. If anything, it only deepened them. I was struggling to make sense of what was happening. Later that day, I spoke with Nick's friend Wolf. He listened, but seemed to brush it off, attributing it to my imagination. That night, I was determined to stay awake so I wouldn't have to face whatever it was that had haunted me the night before. I tried to keep everyone awake by kicking the bunk, but eventually they all fell asleep, leaving me alone with my dread. Around 3 a.m., the footsteps returned. I heard the same sequence of events. The door opening, the bells ringing, the pot falling. The entity walked down the hall, and I expected it to do the same as before, enter Nick's room and disappear into the ground. But this time, it didn't. Instead, it walked into the lofted area, where I could hear it creaking up the stairs. The terror mounted as it moved directly above me, and I was paralyzed, fearing it would come through the ceiling and into my bed. Hours passed, and I eventually fell asleep out of sheer exhaustion. But when I woke up the next morning, something was wrong. Nick's mum was crying in the loft, standing next to the new coffee table we had bought that day. And then I saw it, scratched into the table, "I love you." At that moment, I was done. I couldn't explain it. Maybe Nick's mom had created the narrative in her mind, or maybe it was a shared hallucination. But I couldn't deny that something supernatural had happened, and I couldn't stay another moment in that place. I never went back to that cabin, and that was the last time I had any experience like that. It remains the only paranormal event in my life, one I'll never forget.